Let's jump right in. Imagine exploring a frontier so vast, so totally uncharted, that it literally makes deep space look like a backyard. Well, in this explainer, we're unpacking something called the Silva method. It's a systematic approach from our sources that claims to tap into these latent, hidden mental abilities that, honestly, most of us don't even realize we possess. I want you to think of your brain as a highly advanced biocomputer. It processes information, it pulls up data, it solves complex problems for us every single day. But ask yourself this right now, at this exact moment. Are you actually running that biocomputer on its absolute weakest, most chaotic frequency? Because the reality is, for about 90% of us, the baseline waking world we operate in is biologically inefficient for deep problem solving. We're out here trying to do our most important, heavy lifting work in a state of total chaos. It's like we're essentially running our brains on caffeinated squirrel mode. Okay, let's dive into this baseline waking state a bit more. We call this the beta level. When you're wide awake and interacting with the physical world, your brain's electrical current is buzzing at roughly 14 to 21 cycles per second, and sometimes it's even higher than that. This right here is the objective world. It's the realm of your 5 physical senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. It's where we just react to our environment. And absolutely crucially, it's totally bounded by the strict limits of time, space, and our daily stress. So it's a great frequency for, say, taking action, but it's a pretty terrible one for actual creation.
Now, to really understand where this method suggests we need to go, we have to look at this scientific map of brain frequencies. As you'll see, we start at the top with that chaotic beta waking state we just talked about. Now, if we drop all the way down to the bottom, we hit delta. That's vibrating at 0 to 4 cycles per second, basically deep unconscious sleep. Just above that is theta, which is a very passive, drowsy state. But look right there in the middle. Right in the glowing center of the mind is the alpha frequency, pulsing at 7 to 14 cycles per second. According to the Silva method, the whole goal isn't to just survive in the noise of beta. It's to deliberately drop down into this exact alpha center. And dropping into this 7 to 14 cycle per second alpha void, it does something pretty incredible to your biology. At this specific frequency, the left and right hemispheres of your brain actually synchronize. They start working perfectly together. You shift completely away from the outer conscious level and plunge right into an inner conscious level. Psychologists used to just call this the subconscious, which kind of made it sound like it was beneath us, right? Or totally out of our control. But through the Silva method, the claim is that you can consciously operate here. It literally becomes your super conscious. That's the place where your true processing power actually lies. And this brilliantly illustrates the stark contrast between where you are right now and where you could be. The beta world is, in a way, a physical trap. You're bound by objective reality, constantly hitting the hard barriers of time and space. But look over at the alpha world. It's subjective, it's completely non-physical. In this alpha void, those barriers of time and space, they simply do not exist. It's the domain of deep intuition, creative visualization, and what we are soon going to discover is extrasensory perception. Now, right about now, you might be wondering, okay, doesn't this just sound like regular meditation? But it is absolutely vital to draw a line here. Traditional Eastern meditation is mostly passive, right? It often seeks a state of mindlessness, like a quiet detachment from the physical world. But the Silva method, it focuses on dynamic meditation. This is a highly active process. You are slowing your brain waves down to alpha, sure, but instead of checking out, you are staying completely 100% wide awake. This explainer is entirely about mindfulness. It's about maintaining full, deliberate control in that alpha void so you can actively program your biocomputer. The big challenge here, though, is that most of us are hardwired to just instantly fall asleep the second our brain slows down to that alpha level. So how does the method tackle this? Conditioning. Specifically, it's a roughly 40-day routine designed to train your brain to stay awake at this depth. It usually starts with lying in bed in the morning, closing your eyes, and slowly, deliberately counting backward from 100 down to 1. And over the weeks, the practitioner gradually shortens that countdown. They are literally building a brand new neurological habit, conditioning the mind to effortlessly dip into this deep, meditative frequency without losing conscious awareness. So what does this all mean when you finally get there? Let's say the work is done. Your mind is conditioned, you're wide awake and fully aware in this deep, dark, infinite alpha void. What do you actually do? How do you interface with this incredible processing power? Well, we have to transition from just escaping the chaos of beta to actively building a functional workspace. The method requires us to construct an alpha base camp, so to speak. To build that base camp, the practitioner constructs what is called the mental screen. And this isn't just some vague metaphor, it's a highly specific mechanical procedure. First, you close your eyes. Second, you turn your eyes slightly upward, at an angle of about 20 degrees. Actually, fun fact, this physical eye position is scientifically proven to help trigger alpha waves. Finally, you project an imaginary movie screen about 6 feet in front of you, just slightly above eye level. You're visualizing this glowing workspace forming right there in the cinematic darkness of your mind.
Once that mental screen is constructed, it becomes your ultimate communications tool. You use it to examine existing situations from basically every angle. Problems get projected right onto this mental screen, which allows your logical left brain to hand a visual blueprint directly over to your creative right brain. The right brain then takes over, connecting with higher intelligence to generate solutions. In the Silva method, a problem is never viewed as totally unsolvable. No way. It's simply treated as a temporary lack of information, and the mental screen is exactly how that missing data is detected.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the Silva method completely redefines a very famous and honestly often misunderstood acronym. We've all heard of ESP as extrasensory perception, right? Which kind of sounds like passively waiting around to receive some spooky signals. But here, it is reframed as effective sensory projection. It's an active, highly targeted capability. The practitioner consciously projects their awareness to wherever the desired information is located, totally bypassing the physical limitations of the five senses. They aren't just perceiving, they are projecting. And that brings us to one of the most high-stakes, absolutely mind-bending applications of this training: caseworking. Just picture this. Imagine students sitting in pairs in a classroom, deeply relaxed in the alpha state. They're using their mental screens to actually project their awareness into total strangers they have never even met, attempting to detect and diagnose precise physical illnesses. I know, it sounds straight out of science fiction, but it's actually a core graduation requirement of the system. So here is exactly how this medical scanning process works inside the alpha void. An orientologist gives the student some very basic data. We're talking just a name, age, gender, and the location of the sick person. The student then projects that stranger's image onto their mental screen. They scan this imaginary body up and down with their mind until their attention is naturally drawn to a specific area. Now you might wonder, why start with health? Well, because the human brain's primal, #1 priority is survival. Because of that, physical health abnormalities are actually the easiest anomalies for our consciousness to zero in on when we're first learning to project. Now, if you're feeling a little bit skeptical about the idea of scanning strangers across the country using just your mind, I really want you to read this powerful quote. This doesn't come from a mystic. It comes from Edgar Mitchell. He was an Apollo 14 astronaut and the founder of the Institute of Noetic Sciences. He said, "There are no unnatural or supernatural phenomena, only very large gaps in our knowledge of what is natural." We're not talking about magic or mysticism here. The source material points to immense, untapped scientific potential, utilizing the natural frequency of the human biocomputer in ways that modern science is literally only just beginning to grasp.
Which really leaves us staring into the infinite potential of our own minds. Just think about this for a second. If human consciousness, according to these methods, can project across time and space to pinpoint and solve a total stranger's physical problem, what is currently standing in the way of solving your own? The alpha void is waiting. The concepts are right here in front of you. It might just be time to close your eyes, look up 20 degrees, and start building your mental screen today.